What's up, guys? Welcome to Eye on the County, a very special edition. Today joining me is Miss Kathie Glass. She is the Libertarian candidate for Texas State Governor. Welcome to the show. Glad you could make it. We're doing a little bit different of a forum here today. We got a bit of a live studio audience. They're going to be asking some questions of Miss Glass, and we're all going to try and figure out where her stance is on several of the key issues that face us today.
Let's do it.
All right. Now, my question is, what is your stance on, like, Obamacare? Like, do you think that it's good for Texas citizens to partake in the universal health care?
No, it's not. It's unconstitutional. The federal government has no right or authority to regulate health insurance. To mandate that someone purchase a product. I believe in individual liberty. People should be able to make that decision for themselves. And in Texas, we should nullify that. Other states have taken steps to resist unconstitutional federal acts through nullification. Texas has not. So the Texas governor can enforce the Constitution. Only I will.
That's what's up. Yeah, I believe we have a question coming up real quick. All right, if you just want to take a seat on the couch.
You want my question?
Yes, sir.
It's over here where I could hear, but I will sit over here. What do you think is about the possibility, say 25 years from now, rather than Obamacare, they'll be calling it Robamacare for Romney because it was Massachusetts and a Republican governor that first instituted the broad framework that we now have nationwide. It's called Obamacare.
Well, I hope in 25 years we won't call it anything because it won't exist and no one will remember it. I wanted to restore Texas sovereignty to make these decisions for ourselves, to nullify unconstitutional federal acts. We should do this. So I want it to be a thing of the past, maybe study it in history books to show what we don't need to do ever again. But we need to take charge of our own destiny, make decisions for ourselves here in Texas as individuals and as a state, as a sovereign state that we are.
Am I getting it right? Your answer to my question about what they're going to be calling it in 25 years is that, well, we're going to take care of it in that time and it won't be, so we won't have that problem.
We're not going to enforce it in Texas, so we can call it a failure. We can call it quits. We can call it whatever you want to, but it can be a thing of the past. Not just that, but everything like it. Every time that the federal government has come into Texas and started making decisions for us and telling us what we're going to do, we're going to call that ancient history.
So, can you put yourself in the position of a poor person? And I know that's probably impossible because if you're not poor, it's hard to realize. But anyway, for the state to turn down $4 billion a year, you think that's in the state of Texas' best interest? And I will say in the preponderance of the Texas voters, who more than half of them have less than $55,000 annual income?
I don't have to put myself in this place of a poor person. Nature put me in that place when I was born. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I worked my way through college and law school. I came to Texas on 7/7 of '77 from my native Georgia, but I know what it's like, blue-collar worker. I know what it's like to live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with no air conditioning. So I think I know what people want, and people like me want an ability to improve themselves and to progress through life, which I have done through a free market system and through liberty. I want to maintain that, to preserve what the advantages I had that allowed me to get to where I am today so that other generations can have that too.
Sound like you're saying you did it yourself and you expect everybody else to do it themselves.
I expect us to have a system where people can do it themselves. There is opportunity where people are allowed to make decisions for themselves and accept the consequences, good or bad.
All right. Yeah. Dr. Jim, I believe you had a question? You want to take a seat, sir?
Sure.
Well, not much.
Just a little bit. Well, I am a conservative. I guess I would consider myself a member of the Tea Party. There's a broad overlap between libertarianism and the Tea Party. As you know, I mean, the constitutional basis for government, or lack thereof, as we're seeing. And so that's kind of how I'm coming into this conversation. Obviously, Greg Abbott is conservative and is going to take a lot of votes in this race. My question is, why would someone like me, that's an independent voter, very conservative, but with libertarian ideas, why should I vote for you as opposed to him?
Because if I don't win governor, it doesn't matter who does. We're going down a failed path. We've had an experiment, we've tested the hypothesis here in Texas that you can get liberty through the Republican Party for 20 years. 20 years with only Republicans holding any statewide office, owning the House and the Senate, supermajorities at times. What have we got so far? Nothing that I would call conservative, certainly not fiscally conservative. By the way, I'm saying conservative, I interpret that to mean limited constitutional government. And if that's your definition of it, then that's libertarian too. So the labels may be confusing. But I'm saying now, after 20-year rule of only Republicans, a domination in Texas, what have we got to show for it? More taxes, more spending, more debt. We're second highest per capita debt in the nation. We have more assault on our property rights, these eminent domain thefts, and theft of our water. The cronies have never had as much control over Texas as they do now. We've got a more out of control federal government with no one resisting it. So I'm saying, don't play in a rigged game. What would have happened in 2010 if Bill White had been elected governor? I'd say we'd be looking at the same thing. We'd have the same mess down on the border. We'd have the same fiscal insanity. We'd have the same tyrannical federal government. Nothing would happen, and nothing will change if Greg Abbott takes over. So this is, I may be a long shot, but I'm the only shot we have to turn this thing around and save our liberty.
So you would be against, of course, crony capitalism, which is one of the biggest problems we have in the state and in our nation today.
That's right. I say two basic things. I want to be Texas governor, to unite Texans, to fight against two threats to our liberty: a tyrannical federal government and a state government that is corrupted by cronyism. The Texas governor can resist cronyism. Only I will.
I've got some more questions, if it's okay.
I've got more answers.
That's great.
Let's do it.
There, as you know, there's just a huge problem in our nation right now, going down a road that is unconstitutional in so many ways, so many levels. There is a move afoot called the Convention of States, that through Article 5 of the Constitution, 2/3 of the states can ordain that a constitutional convention be held, and that new amendments to the Constitution that might be helpful, such as term limits, limits on federal spending, etc., could be enacted if 3/4 of the states approve. What is your take on that?
I'm not in favor of it, although people can do what they want. Because what's the point? The problem is not with the Constitution. The problem is the federal government violates it daily, and no one forces them to honor it. So what will these new constitutional amendments do? They're going to ignore it. And what are we going to say then? Okay, we really want you to please enforce the Constitution. What are we going to do? At some point, we reach a point where we just have to nullify unconstitutional acts, and we are there now. I don't know how long this convention would take or where it might lead. But I'm saying the house is on fire. We don't have time for that. We have all we need right now to enforce the Constitution, except the will to do so. Will a convention of states give us the will? I don't think so.
I think, well, I might have a slightly different opinion. I see your point about the overt need and that the house is on fire. I accept that. But people being who they are, a convention of states having something like term limits might very well help over time, and that would help to decrease the ruling class of people that have made careers out of serving in Washington. Now, granted, that might take 10, 15 years to enact, but you know, the United States, it survived a war between the states. It'll hopefully survive this crisis that we're in, and it takes time. So I would advocate that it probably is a good process to have.
Well, I'm not sure if we've got that time. I started this run for governor, Texas governor, in 2010 because I concluded the way things were going, I was going to outlive my country. I still think that's going to happen. So I'm trying to focus on Texas because Washington's broken. All these new rules, it won't help. We've got to save our country by taking our take our country back one state at a time, starting with Texas. So I'm focused on Texas. I'm focused on Texas governor, because if you love liberty, the Texas governor is the most powerful office on the face of the earth. So that's why I say it's Texas, it's governor, and it's libertarian, because the two-party system's corrupt. This is our only pathway I see around this thing, and I see this as a distraction, this convention of states, because it dilutes the power of Texas. Why should Texas just be one of 50 or how many you would need 30, 35 or however many to make a go of it?
Yes.
Why dilute it? We can do this all right here in Texas, and just be an example for other states to follow.
I see. If nothing works over time in the next few years, if it continues to go down the hole, would you be in support of secession of Texas if it came to that, to hold to the Texas Constitution?
I would enforce the Texas Constitution, Article 1 and Article 2, but we are a sovereign state, subject only to the U.S. Constitution. I'm not advocating secession, and I tell my secessionist friends, if you think we can more easily secede than return to constitutional governance, you're dangerously wrong.
Yeah, it's a last resort.
It's a last resort. And then let me point out.
But you would accept it as a last resort in theory.
I'm not going there. In theory, we have a political, we have a natural right, we have a moral right to secede. I'm just saying it's not time.
Just positively answered my question.
But remember the Alamo. The Alamo was an act of nullification, not an act of secession. Those men died not even knowing that we had declared Texas independence.
Correct.
This is what happens when you start to nullify. What happens when you stand up to a bully? It depends on the bully more than anything else.
So nullification would be the next logical step.
Yes.
I would agree. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
That's what's up. Yo, so real quick, I'm gonna ask a series of a few questions. What is your stance on border security?
We should have a welcoming immigration policy, a guest worker program, which Texas designs and implements. That's different border security though, but it would help greatly. I say secure the Texas border with our own Texas State Guard and other Texas assets to assist local law enforcement to enforce laws, Texas law, against trespass and other crimes. Not immigration, but just to get, and once you have this guest worker program, then anyone appear for innocent reasons like a job, they're not coming through that way. You remove the haystack, then you can see the needles and you know how to deal with those.
Okay. Now, what is your, what sort of programs do you think you would be able to implement in order to help out with the deficit that faces Texas today?
Well, I'll use the line item veto, which has been in the news lately, but not in a positive way. Unlike our current governor, I would use the line item veto to get our budget in shape. It's a powerful tool, which he won't use. And why not? Because he's a crony. Everything in that budget, some crony wants it, so he can't use it to get the budget in shape. Instead, he uses it to inflict pain on his political enemies. That's a misuse of it. So that's something I would do. Also call special sessions and say, this is what we need to do. We need to restore fiscal sanity because 35% of our budget comes from the federal government. The time is coming when Washington is not just broken but totally collapsed, and all that goes away. We need to be ready to stand on our own 2 feet as we should have been doing all along. So I would say things like no taxpayer-funded services for non-citizens. That would be part of our guest worker program. That would be the agreement. We say opt out of Medicaid. It's over 25% of our budget. We can't afford it. What we can do is take those savings and craft what Texas wants to help Texas citizens with respect to health care and other services. I think we would have better services at a lower cost. But those 2 items right there, that's almost 50% of our budget. And of course, we're just getting warmed up with what we can cut.
Well, another question. What do you think are the toughest issues facing the education department that need to be addressed?
We have the federal government has inserted itself every possible way in our education process with common core, we call it C-scope here. It's amazing what they have done to wrest control away from the local citizens and the state of Texas. So it's just infected. I don't know how to say it. Our Texas Constitution says that we should have a system of free and efficient public schools for the purpose of our citizens understanding their liberty and being able to defend their liberty and their civil rights. But that's not what we've done. That's not what we have done. It's just the opposite with this, what I call Fed-led ed. That's not my term, but it just means the federal government is leading us on education, whether we thought that, whether we took the money overtly or not. They are dominating. And instead of teaching our children to love liberty, we are conditioning to accept servitude and conformity. They're not being educated. So we've got to totally rework the education system to honor our Texas Constitution. And if we can't do that, then I say repeal the constitutional provision that requires government schools in the first place and get government out of education altogether.
So what's up? You have one more question, bud?
Yes, sir. What do you think about the current movement
To privatize the state mental health hospitals.
Well, I think they're in pretty sad shape right now. And I wouldn't go privatize, but we've got to do something different.
Well,
We
they're
used
trying to
have-
privatize Terrell right now. They're trying to sell it.
I'd have to know the details of that. It sounds good to someone who opposes the free market, but we've seen,
Privatization sounds good.
well, I'd like to finish my answer if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Yes, privatization does sound good, but we've seen some of these public-private partnerships with prisons and others, and you have the worst of both worlds. So I would be leery of that. But I know what we've done in the past, I think, worked better than what we're doing right now, so we've got to find a different way to do things.
My understanding of it, wherever he went, that boy right there, 30-year-old man, he's a schizophrenic mental health patient, my son, where I'm coming from, but my own personal experience with it has been inadequate state-run, and my experience with the mental health system where it's privately run, I just say just quote-unquote Dr. Phil's type stuff, where resources are unlimited, is a little bit better.
Well,
But the end result, if you don't have the money, you don't seem to have much of a chance. But I've seen it, and it doesn't seem like they know what adequate mental health care is. They know how to medicate. They know how to, I'll say, put them down. They can do that, and they do that exceptionally well. But as far as getting somebody through the process, we saw with Sergeant Bergdahl what might be adequate care. The same team picked him up when he was released, and they were with him until he was put back on service. We don't have that anywhere in this country that I know of, unless you can spend great amounts of money.
it's my understanding that in Texas and other places, we used to have homes and facilities where people were, where people stayed like this. But now, there was a transition, I guess, in the 60s to Medicaid and releasing on the streets. I don't think that's working.
It does not work. It puts a partnership in with the jails. How about voting?
You know,
Are you
Harris
for people
County,
to vote?
yes, I like people to vote. Harris County Jail, I'm told, is the #1 health care provider in the state, because that's where people go. They have no other places to take them. So it's for mental health services.
That's about right. They can't handle them and their symptoms. But on voting, I'll just start out with Australia. In Australia, it's mandatory to vote.
I don't agree with that.
You don't
I'm
agree
for
with
free.
Do you
In
agree with
Soviet
limiting the vote?
She's got
I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yo, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
This
Thank
has been
you,
great.
Kathie
Yeah.
Glass, for stopping by Little Athens, Texas, to talk to us about politicking and all that good
Yes.
stuff.
And I just ask that if the viewers are interested and want to check me out more, then you go to my website, KathieGlass.org. Of course, that's KATHIE, KathieGlass.org. My Facebook page, Kathie Glass for Texas Governor. And
Okay.
I hope
Well,
you get,
it was-
I think if you get to know me, you'll see that I'm a good choice.
Yeah.
Governor's race.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you letting us interview you. And as always, stay blessed and know we got to ride.
I do have a few questions before we go. They're not about politics. People wanted to know what your favorite music was and your favorite movie.
Well, my favorite music is Motown. Anything from Motown. Four Tops. Anything like that. That's what I grew up on. Also, my favorite movie, Fountainhead. Atlas Shrugged was going to be, but it it's not really panned out that way.
Okay.
That's a good libertarian answer, ma'am.
You know, as always, stay blessed and know we got our eye on the county because that's what's up.